Good evening. This is July 21st, 2025, Newberg City Council. I call this meeting to order. Rachel, could we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Counselor McBride,
Here.
Counselor Wheatley, here. Counselor Yarnell Holloman, here. Counselor Kilberg, here. Mayor Rosacker,
Here.
Counselor Turgeson,
Here.
and Counselor Carmen.
Here.
Thank you.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Welcome, everybody. This is the final week of July, which is always traditionally when we have the Old Fashioned Festival. So as Mayor and City Council, we proclaim this to be Old Fashioned Festival Week, and we happen to have an honored guest, the Queen, Annie Williamson. Annie, would you like to come up and say a few words?
My name is Annie Williamson. I am 16 years old and I will be a junior this upcoming year. I wanted to be on the court because I've lived in Newberg almost my whole life and I have 4 siblings, so as a family we've all come to the festival every year, and I thought it was really cool seeing the princesses and the queen every year. And I was really inspired and I wanted to do that. But as I grew older, I learned more about the festival, and I was good friends with Kendall, who was the queen last year. And she told me about it and how it was such an amazing opportunity to grow and just learn a lot more about responsibility and about our town. So that's why I applied. And I've had an amazing time so far. We've gotten to do lots of volunteering all around town. We've been to events like Tunes on Tuesday and First Friday. And I would say my favorite event this year so far was the St. Paul Parade, because we got to meet a lot of the rodeo queens and princesses from all around Oregon. So that was really cool to be able to kind of share a piece of Newberg with people from all across Oregon. And I want to thank you for being here with me and for listening to me. And in case anyone doesn't know, the festival's this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I would like to invite you all. And if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer.
I would like to know if this week your siblings treat you with the respect of the royalty that you are.
Actually, the funny thing is I have a little brother and he's 7 years old, and I have a little sister who's 9. And just last week we had the Sherwood Parade and my little brother ran out and he started bowing down and being like, "Oh, Queen Annie." So, and this year we're having the brothers of all the people on court be in the parade with us. And they got like shirts that say court security on it. So they're going to be walking with us in the parade. So they're all really involved, which is awesome because the theme this year is Newberg's family reunion. So it's really fun to have family be a part of it.
Honourable Mayor and Council, this is the statistics report to the end of May 2025. And planning had combined decisions of all sorts, 9, which is ticking up a bit. And only 1 housing unit, but there is a lot more in the pipeline right now. So we're going to be seeing some more numbers soon in that regard. Lots of construction happening right now. And permits, other types, 81. Once again, fairly low for the averages, but still ticking up a little bit. And I'm going to see more of that, I think. Building inspections, 385. Similar story. Submission through the website, 30. So that's actually a really big number. And of course, every one of those represents a question that's been asked, whether it be directly to administration or for another department, and then we've chased down the answer. Social media engagement, 14,622. And that's been trending up as a big number. And as usual, very steady. Sometimes I wonder about the value of this statistic. Over time, this metric just gradually gets larger as the town grows. But, you know, it's still interesting. It does show a very good engagement with our social media profiles from our residents. If you think about 26,000 people, and you think maybe people that are consuming social media might be 15,000 or 16,000 regularly, then that's a pretty big number. And here's the killer. 18 public record requests in 1 month, which is the most we have ever seen in 4 years. So you have to think about this. This is enormous. Each one of these represented possibly dozens and dozens of documents that had to be found and provided. These were across all different departments. So I take my hat off to Rachel. This is huge. That's a crazy number. And I'm glad we don't see that too often. Not about anything controversial, regular stuff. Now I'm hoping this is a leading indicator of future construction, because sometimes when people run PRRs, it's because they're looking for as-built documents, which can lead into construction stuff. 1.47 millions of accounts payable and 1.02 millions of payroll. And we had, amongst other things, the Lawson Corporation $212,000 for the Meridian Waterline sewer replacement work. We had Energy Systems, I can't pronounce it, Yera Energy Systems, 80,000 for part of the charging equipment for the public works upgrade. And then of course we had Eagle Elsner charges, 99,000 for grind and inlay work. So we had several construction ones come in pretty large as well. The payroll number was much more conventional. HR, as usual, lots of work there. 3 recruitments, 1 hire, 0 separations, and the FEMLA, etc. workers claims 6, somewhat higher than normal, but we didn't have any big accidents or anything. I believe we did have 1 backing into something accident that was caused a claim, but sometimes that happens. And here I can say we're almost back to full staff with public works again. I believe there's currently just 2 positions left to fill, so we're recovering from that loss too. This is 2 months ago, so May. Yep. So we're nearly there. And 381 service tickets. That's much higher than normal. A lot of that is being driven, and you're going to see more of that, because we're moving some services to the cloud, and that's causing a lot of help tickets. We're moving reluctantly off of Windows 10 to Windows 11. That's causing a lot of help tickets. We're also experimenting with a new virtual desktop, because it's probably going to turn out to be cheaper, which is the Azure desktop environment. That's causing help tickets. We're also doing a complete analysis of our whole network, replacing switches. That's causing help tickets. So lots of things causing help tickets. 3 after hours on-call events. One of the things that the IT director, who's currently on vacation, one of the things he's trying to do is go to more self-service for things like password changes, so that there won't have to be so much on-call things, saving on overtime potentially as well. So, library count, 8,226 on the door, and a whopping 34,161 on circulation events. Continues to absolutely rocket up those numbers. Fantastic. 2,651 calls for service from public safety, and that is a bit higher than normal. I don't think there was any particular increase in issues or criminality, but just there was a lot of service calls at that time. and 1,070 traffic stops. Similarly, a pretty busy month we had there. Maybe people weren't paying attention as much as they should be. And I'm not going to have information on citations and warnings for many months until we finish this moving the e-ticket platform and other things to our new cloud-based software. And I can answer more about that, but it's really just by moving to the new platform, we're not generating the statistics yet. So as soon as I know more about that, you'll get the service back that you've become accustomed to. And for DUIs on the other side of the scale, that's a good number. That's not too bad. 746 911 calls and 2,528 of non-emergency calls. And those are fairly standard numbers for this point in the cycle. Water production, 74.28 million gallons and 70.72 million gallons of wastewater treated. I will point out though that in the last month, not in these statistics yet, for the first time in one day, we manufactured more than 4 million gallons in a day. So, as you know, I'm always watching that because the plant cannot make more than 5 million in a day. So we continue to move towards that day when we must have a new water plant. So we're now on our busiest day, 4/5 of the way there to maximum capacity. And of course, at maximum capacity, the water reserve would start to be reduced over time, which would be dangerous. So yeah, not there yet though, don't worry. Public Works, 655 on the work orders. And that's a lower number than we would have expected, but then we were facing the staffing shortage at this time and lots of sidewalk stuff, which only counted as one work order, although it was in many locations. Okay, so that is the totals through the end of May. Building inspection work is running very light right now, but we do expect there's a lot of activity in the pipeline. Scott's warning me this is coming, and we've never had more public information requests than May of 2025. In the 4 years when I've been collecting statistics, but maybe ever. I mean, that is a monstrous huge number for that. Public works activity was impacted by being short-staffed. And honourable councillors, are there any questions?
Sue, on the records request, I know you said there wasn't anything really major, but can you give us like 2 or 3 examples, or what are people asking for?
For better details, I am now pivoting to the brilliant Rachel Thomas.
It's nice to be brilliant for being able to answer questions sometimes. Now, that's a lot of them are things like permits on this property over the past couple of years, zoning for this specific location, as-built. They might be asking for resolutions or information about something that's happened at the city in the past. So there's been a wide variety, but nothing that's ever raised a red flag. And I watch for patterns, and I watch for any, like, what's going on here? But very typical things. Mostly it's things like, permits. What permits are on this building or this address in this year, which is why we believe it could be a very, very early leading indicator of building things.
Thank you, Will. So that brings us to public comments. We have one today from Sonda Martin. Welcome. Well, you're on it. Good.
Council, Mayor, others. My name is Sonda Martin. I've lived in Newberg since 2000, and I'm a homeowner. I've been employed in Newberg at different times, not now, but I'm coming in front of you. I sent all of you letters, Council and Mayor, yesterday, asking that you reconsider the decision to award the Spark program CET funds Counselor Wheatley was gracious enough to answer my email, and she did say that I should have come to the 7/16 meeting and given some testimony before the decision was made, which I appreciate, but sadly, I didn't really think that the city council was going to pass over the criteria that had been agreed on and award funds to a program that didn't even meet the minimum criteria. So I'm kind of after the fact here, but nonetheless, I'll give it. I was rewatching the committee meeting, the Housing Commission meeting today, and I saw that in April 2025, when the commission met, staff Leanne Wagner pointed out that the criteria had been vetted and approved at a previous meeting with the mayor and the city council, and that all applicants had the same amount of time to meet and meet the criteria and apply. So the process was fair. Interestingly enough, I picked up on the fact that Scott, the staff member over there, gave a long speech at that meeting about how the commission's recommendation was only a recommendation and the criteria was kind of malleable. It almost appeared to someone who looks in from the outside as if he was setting up the very possibility that the city council would ignore the criteria and still award funds to a program that didn't even meet the threshold. It was also mentioned at that meeting, I think, and I may be getting this wrong, that the city manager has assured folks that the mayor would not be presenting the Spark proposal. Yet before the city heard the proposal, their recommendation from the Housing Commission, before the applicants made their pitches at the June 16th meeting, the mayor essentially gave a pitch for the Spark program, made sure everybody knew that he was a driver of this program and that he was all for it. He complained about the 501c3 criteria being too restrictive, and then recused himself to go sit with the presenters, and he did actually come up here. I think it's very questionable to have the mayor plug this program and then recuse himself. I want to know, how much selling did he do behind the scenes? I mean, why will we ever know? Additionally, on the conflict of interest area, watching the video from the city council meeting, I picked up on another thing. Another city council, I'm not sure which one it was, Peggy or Robin, maybe Jerry, I don't know, announced they had a potential conflict of interest because they had been part of the initial group of Spark early on and left because of too many obligations. I'm not sure which one it was because on the screen it's very small, and strangely it didn't actually make it into the official city minutes that there was that conflict of interest. I just want to know, why did the city not follow its own rules in this case? What's the point of having criteria, objective, fair criteria for all participants, if one group that happens to be plugged by somebody that's well known is going to get approved when all the other groups went through all the trouble to meet the criteria and jump through the hoops? Now Spark is getting how much time to actually retroactively meet the criteria? Why is that fair? I just don't understand why the city council would ignore its own rules to do something for somebody's pet project. Would somebody else's pet project have gotten approved if it didn't meet threshold criteria? As I said, why even have it if you're going to ignore it in favor of the mayor's pet project? Also, just the program states it wants to avoid the tenant-landlord relationship by referring to rent as fees and having a code of conduct that participants must agree to in order to stay in the program. This sounds suspiciously about avoiding the landlord-tenant responsibility, and what rights would the tenants have that they're giving up for this? What is the education they have to agree to? Does it actually include any religious content? Why was reference to spiritual, relational, and emotional development deleted from the Spark website after another op-ed against the Spark program was put in the Newberg online paper? Lastly, as I said in my letter, it's classist and patronizing to assume that the only reason people can't afford houses in Newberg are because they need financial education. There's a lot of reasons why people can't afford housing in Newberg, mostly because it's too darn expensive. I bought my house in 2004 for $198,000. That same house today is worth $550,000 if all the places that want to buy it are right. Wages have not gone up 250%. The minimum wage worker, the ADAC worker making $19 an hour, working 40 hours a week, would only make just under $40,000 a year, or about $2,600 to $2,700 net pay. They cannot afford, nor would they qualify for a mortgage for a $426,000 average Newberg price. People making minimum wage or less cannot afford to live in Newberg. There's not enough childcare, there's not enough housing, and this program for 20 people who maybe meet criteria is not going to create the affordable housing that we need in Newberg. Thank you very much.
All right, next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. So new business. We have an item for purchase of a diesel-powered street sweeper. So the real question is, what are we going to name this one?
Mayor, councilors, Russ Thomas, Director of Public Works for the City of Newberg. Bringing forward a request for the authorization to purchase a diesel-powered street sweeper, as you mentioned. Since the early 80s, the City of Newberg has owned and operated 2 street sweepers. We recently got our electric street sweeper through a grant. Our second street sweeper that we use, and it's primarily used during winter, fall and winter months for the leaf collections. They're 2 diametrically opposed designs. The electric street sweeper is a hydrostatically driven, which means the electric motors drive a hydraulic pump that drives the mechanical parts of it. This street sweeper is a crosswind generated, so they call it a tornado. It's basically a fan that builds a high pressure, pushes the air across like a blower, and then a vacuum on the other side that picks it up. So they operate in 2 different modes. They're capable of 2 different things, but when we get into the months of September through January, February, one street sweeper is not capable of keeping up with the leaves that we have, and especially as the city has grown and our tree canopy has grown alongside the roads. The second thing is it provides us the ability to maintain and continue our street sweeping schedule for the residents when another sweeper is down. And one of the issues that we face with an electric street sweeper over conventional is when it is down for maintenance, maintenance does not take a day. Its most recent maintenance turn was an 8-day event. So we were down for 8 days, not sweeping with that. The second component is our current conventional street sweeper has had a failure in the transmission mechanism that drives the sweeping component. The cost to repair that is $28,000. The value of the sweeper currently is $40,000 when repaired. So it really doesn't make financial sense to put that kind of money back into that type of street sweeper. The environment that street sweepers are in, they last an average, if they're run daily, every day, which cities of Eugene, Salem, Hillsborough, Portland do, they have an average lifespan of about 5 years. We've gotten significantly more out of that because we alternate sweepers and we maintain them a little better with that. So with this, the conventional one, and it's a single motor versus 2 diesel motors on there. And what our plan is if approved, we're going to go back to, we have currently have a grant through DEQ for the electric chain hook truck. And as an agreement with that, we have to destroy 2 diesel engines vehicles. Well, the current sweeper which has no value unless it's repaired, has 2 diesel engines on it, versus destroying 2 other older trucks, which we can then surplus and recover the investment in the value of those vehicles. Basically, this sweeper, without repairing it, has very little or minimal value other than the value of the chassis if all the sweeping components is removed, which is be minimal. Back in the mid-80s and 90s, with the reconstruction of Portland Road, Highway 99W, an agreement was reached that the city would take over the sweeping of the state highways within the city of Newberg as part of that agreement. So that added significant mileage to us, but not only mileage, but material. I'm sure all of you have driven along the state highway and seen spelt rock, all kinds of material that's on there. And the crosswind type machine that generates a high volume 300-mile-per-hour wind is much more efficient in picking this material up. Secondly, it has the capability to sweep going backwards. And you kind of wonder, why is that a big deal? Well, if you've seen the piles of rock and stuff that's in the middle of an intersection, you have to pull forward sweeping, stop, back up, pull forward sweeping, stop, back up, pull forward sweeping, stop, back up. And if you're in the middle of traffic on like on 99, which I'm sure you can appreciate, that's very dangerous. And most often we request police support to back us up while we're doing that. With this, they can sweep going forward, sweep going backwards, sweep going forward and be gone. They can make 3 passes in half the time. The price on this is through Sourcewell. Sourcewell is a national cooperative purchasing agreement, previously known as the National Joint Powers Alliance out of Minnesota. It meets all the requirements of the ORS 279 purchasing requirements for the state of Oregon. We demoed many different models. Much more expensive than these. These are manufactured in the United States. And this model was decided to be the best for our conditions that we have. About half of our streets are flat. In new subdivisions, when you get to the curb, you notice it's fairly flat. In the old part of town, we have crowned streets. And the difficulty with the electric sweeper, mechanical sweeper, is sweeping crown streets completely. Whereas this, a crosswind or a wind-generated vacuum sweeper is much more efficient at sweeping those streets. During the summertime, we don't get a lot, but the crown streets are where all the trees are. So this gives us a benefit to do this. So if approved, this sweeper would be our second sweeper. That would back up the electrical sweeper when it's being down for service. The electrical would back it up when it's down for service. And both jointly would extend the life of both pieces of equipment through the life of the equipment. Are there any questions on it?
I know that I already checked with the city manager and found that this is on our budget, so this is pretty normal course of events for us. Would anybody like to make a motion? Mike?
I move that we adopt resolution 2025-3980, authorizing the city manager to purchase the Swartz diesel street sweeper for a cost of $420,631.96.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number 2020. I've got the wrong one here. 3980, authorizing the city manager to approve and purchase one diesel powered street sweeper. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same, or nay? Motion passes unanimously. I'm assuming you're sitting there to talk about the next item on the agenda.
Thank you. And yes, I do. And I actually have something I want to hand out to help give you a little more information. Mayor, council members, what I'm requesting is replacement of our existing 12-year-old Q's, and Q's is a brand name. Uh, Closed circuit televised and pipe inspection system, basically referred to as our TV truck or the sewer TV camera. It is technologically obsolete. Uh, if you can imagine replacing your cell phones every 3 or 4 years, this is 13 years going on 14 years. One of the other things is Q's is a proprietary company. So all of their equipment, their software, their hardware is all proprietary. One of the things that we're facing is the expansion of the city is having to inspect more and more of our sewer pipelines. We have over 90 miles of wastewater collection pipe. We have 38 miles of wastewater service laterals. That's from the main line to the home. And about 77 miles of stormwater piping that this camera is used to inspect. And what we do is we put it inside the pipe and it tells us what it looks like from the inside. A great example of the use of this was the stormwater pipe on Blaine Street that was just recently replaced. We knew it had problems, but without getting inside it with a camera and recognizing the root growth that was in there, damage in the pipe, the broken pipes, we would never have known until it completely plugged and tried to clean it. One of the other things that has happened is, as everybody is acutely aware, is AI. AI inspections can aid us in multiplying our inspection capabilities by 4 to 8 times. Currently, what I gave everybody, they've standardized codes for entering when you inspect a pipe. You see a fracture, a hole, a crack, a leaking joint. This is the list of codes that you enter into this. And the reason a code is entered into it is it comes out in a report. These can be used by engineering firms or contractors to determine exactly what is the damage and the extent of the damage. And we can also use this to determine which pipes need to be replaced and which don't. But if you take a look at this, this is what our operators have to manually, right now, manually enter every time they stop at a joint, at a lateral, at a leak, at a crack, a pinhole, anything of that nature. They have to go through the list, determine what is it exactly, and then enter it in through a keyboard in the computer system to generate a report. And if you can imagine going through there with on a crawler, like a tank treads, through the line, it can take them sometimes half a day to do 500 feet of pipe that's in there because they have to manually enter each and every one of these. The current system we have is not capable of adding the AI capability to it. With AI, we put the crawler in the pipe and we drive down the pipe and record it. And when we get to the end, we take it out. And by the time we do that, AI has generated this report with all the codes on it because it is comparing millions of similar defects in the pipe to what it sees on the camera, because it can do it in milliseconds where it takes us, the guy's got to look through the list if he doesn't remember them all. And you can only imagine trying to memorize this list and provide that report. So what we do in a day with our TV camera right now, we can do that same thing in an hour with the AI capabilities. And as we continue to grow, it does that. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. And without the improvements to the camera and the system, we can't add the AI. Now, if approved, our intent is to market the existing system to other smaller communities that may not have a camera, or maybe they have an older camera system. This is going to help them. We did that previously when we replaced it 13 years ago or 14 years ago. We actually sold it to a town up in Washington and recovered the value of that, which helped offset it. Additionally, this system here is kind of the new plug and play. It's compatible with several of the different AI systems that's out there. Obviously, AI needs a human oversight to review it, take a look at the report, make sure it's accurate, that it's reporting what it sees on there, But it does multiplier capabilities without multiplying our staff and equipment to do that, and especially as we grow. Again, this system, if we were to retrofit it back into the existing truck, we'd lose all value of the existing truck equipment, the Q's equipment, and we'd still have a 14-year-old chassis trying to run this. And the cost to retrofit it back into the truck is about the same price as a new custom built truck that's built around it. Again, this was looked at by our staff, by the operators that run our existing camera. We demoed several different makes and models, and this was decided to be the most beneficial to the city, the most we could use it on every system. Additionally, we're with this purchasing a lateral launch camera. And what lateral launch means is when we pull up to the sewer lateral that goes to the home, we can't right now, we can turn and look up the pipe, but we really can't see anything. And maybe that lateral is 100 feet long going up into the property before it even gets up to the house or gets to the edge of the right of way. With a lateral launch camera, we have the ability to turn the camera and then it will push that camera up that lateral up to 147 feet and give us the ability to inspect that, which is in the public right of way, the city of Newberg's responsibility to maintain. And a lot of times we guess or we rely on reports from plumbers who have gone in to unplug it to see what the conditions are of that. Especially in light of the fact that we do have an I&I problem, inflow and infiltration problem, with our older pipes that were constructed 100 years ago, the vitrified clay, some of the concrete. We do have leakage into the system. As we repair the main lines, this leakage goes upgrade and in the laterals, but we really can't tell without having that capability. So this will include that capability with it as well. Again, this is purchased through Sourcewell pricing, meets the ORS 279 requirements for it, and will give us the capabilities to expand it more. One of the caveats here is part of this equipment is not US made. The majority of all of the cable TV inspection equipment for pipes is not made in the United States. There's all components that come from France, Belgium. Europe is leading the charge on this, as well as Japan. And so we'd like to have Japan's robot. They put a camera in and turn it loose and pick it up 2 weeks later. They don't even have to set on it. It tells them, I'm in this manhole, come pick me up. My battery's almost dead. A lot more expensive, believe me. With all the video recorded on it, but the cost is significant in those systems. But this meets all the requirements on it of the public contracting law, the cooperative purchasing. And again, as a member of Sourcewell, we're able to take advantage of those pricing discounts that we can get through it. So I'd like to request the approval of the resolution for the purchase of this. Any questions?
And it looks like, again, it's already approved in the 25 through 27.
It is included in the
Biennium
current
budget.
biennium budget to purchase this, yes.
I'll call a motion. I move that we adopt resolution 2025-3981, authorizing the city manager to approve the purchase of one EnviroSite rover CCTV pipe inspection system and vehicle from True North Equipment Company in the amount of $396,634.03.
Second.
All right. It has been, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2025-3981, authorizing the city manager to approve purchase of one EnviroSite rover. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And when we decide to start naming the next sweeper, we'll bring you on board. Thank you.
What, just out of curiosity, this is a significant amount of money, almost 400,000. How much would that Japanese robot cost? Do you have any idea?
It's about 750,000 for the system.
Honorable Mayor, the Korean one, the guy told me was equivalent of $850,000.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Ross. Let's see. The next item on our agenda is a resolution authorizing the application for DLCD Housing Planning and Assistance Grant.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Scott Siegel, Community Development Director, and joining me, of course, is Leanne Wagner, our Associate Planner. Resolution 2025-3982 is before you as the city is requesting, the Planning Division is requesting your authorization to submit an application for a housing planning assistance grant to the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development. And as the council may recall, back in October of 2024, you approved Resolution 3952, which essentially reset the schedule and the work program for our compliance with statewide housing goals. And we previously were on a schedule to adopt a housing needs analysis in 2024. On further evaluation of that, the council requested that we go to DLCD and ask for a new schedule that would allow us to address more recent population forecasts, have current buildable lands inventories, and just basically a more robust and useful document. So DLCD approved that request. We received a letter from the director in December, and so we are now on a schedule to adopt a housing capacity analysis by the end of 2027 and a housing production strategy, which is sort of the policy that implements that housing need by the end of 2028. We're here before you requesting approval for the grant. At this time, it seems early, but we actually need to start planning for this now because the state's biennium is 2025 through 27. And in order to complete this work by the end of 2027, we need to be in the queue. And we have been advised by the staff at DLCD that Newberg is well positioned for this grant. Of course, they wouldn't make a decision without submitting the application, but they did say that we are among the high priority jurisdictions by virtue of our deadline coming up in 2027. So that's the background, basically how we got here, the purpose and need, the sort of the goal or the aspiration of funding this through a grant was a statement that does appear in your budget. So in the budget document, we said that there would be outside expenses to do this work, and we were proposing to fund that through a grant. And Leanne can tell you more if you have questions about the structure of that. There are a couple of different ways that we could approach it. We've opted to request direct assistance through one of the state's on-call consultants rather than going through a procurement process which would involve more staff time and overhead. And in consultation with the state, the short list of pre-approved consultants who they work with are all firms that we're familiar with. I think we would be comfortable working with pretty much any of them, but we will have a say in which firm we're matched with. So I just wanted to give you that background. It's not a conventional grant where the state reimburses the city for its costs. We scope the project with the state. They have a fairly prescribed approach that's intended to comply with state rules. And then they, with our input and request, they will appoint a consultant to work with us. So that's the basic approach. But I'm happy to turn it over to Leanne if you have anything to add or if the council has any questions for you.
I don't know that I have anything to add unless you want to ask questions about the application process, which is really straightforward. It's something that we fill out, and they even have a work sample program to choose from to make things easier. So, and we fall squarely in line with the one for the housing capacity analysis, which is what we're seeking the grant funding assistance for.
I was just wondering, when would we see, if we won, what time frame are we looking at where we would be notified?
I'm not sure when we would be notified. The applications are due soon. So we were hoping to get this in because we do need the resolution from city council to submit with our application, which is due on the 4th of August. So it's coming up very quickly. I'm not sure that they've.
Yeah,
set
well,
up-
they're motivated, they are motivated to move quickly because it is a 2-year budget and we're already in that fiscal year. They have jurisdictions who, like ourselves, who are under state mandated deadlines. So in a previous life, I was a consultant, did that work on behalf of the state and working with communities around Oregon. And the sort of the procurement process on their end can be anywhere from 3 to 4 months. And then there's an IGA or an intergovernmental agreement that we may be asked to bring back to you for approving that project.
All right, pretty straightforward, state mandated. Would anybody like to make a motion? Derek,
I move we adopt resolution 2025-3982.
Second.
all right, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2025-3982. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Are you presenting on the rail spur? Okay. All right.
Honourable Mayor and Council. This item is really just to find out what you guys think about something. So several times we've considered the challenges around doing grind and inlay or other repairs which fall on the journey of the rail line. And I'm going to show you some of those sections that I'm talking about. We've often considered and mused upon the advantages of trying to get the rail line removed, but there also is some other things to think about that we have to weigh up. So since this is kind of a new thing, you know my style, whenever there's a thing we haven't actually formally debated, I always like to bring it to council. That is my appropriate role. New slide, please. So first of all, what rail spur are we talking about? I've got 2 slides taken from our old friend Google Maps, which does seem to have a missing intermediate zoom function. It's kind of annoying. You can't ever get exactly the zoom you want on Google Maps, but oh well. So this is the southern bit that you're looking at. And of course, if you were to follow the rail line off to the right, you'd eventually come to the mill site, and it comes along and a big curve goes up like this. And then next slide, please. And then the next bit is the bit that we're all more familiar with, I think. If you were to walk down Blaine Street, you're going to be walking right along a railway line, and that would come all the way down and it would join that curving bit that we looked a moment ago, basically up Blaine Street. New slide, please. So where does this question come from? Staff can see the advantages of seeking the removal of the rail spur, at least from the CDC-owned property line to the railroad crossing at Highway 99, simply because this is a piece of street that is not in great condition. It's not on our worst streets list, though. Let me be clear to say that. But it would enable us in future to do grind and inlay repairs very much more economically than we could today. Today, if we had to do grind and inlay repairs We couldn't get a normal machine in there. We'd have to use something like an asphalt zipper, smaller width machine, and do it in sections because we'd be working around the rail line. So I wanted to come here and just see what you thought about this concept, if it's worth exploring, but it is not free and it comes with some challenges, both in time and in money. New slide, please. So what would be involved? So I included in the packet an extract from OAR 741-200 and its following numbers that illuminate the steps that we would need to try to close or remove a rail line. Within the framework of ORS Chapter 824, only a railroad company or the public authority of interest, which is us, could file an application for authority to construct, relocate, alter, or close a crossing or other rail sections. So we can ask. New slide, please. The action, though, would begin with ODOT Rail. Given ODOT's customary efficiency, we can assume that if we make an ask, it might take at least a year to work through steps to get a meaningful response. This would be the first step. Of course, if we did want to go down this road, as a courtesy, we would have to early in the process inform the Community Development Corporation, the owners of the LLC who own the mill site, of our intent, and I would anticipate that this stage would generate perhaps some small amount of legal expenses. It would definitely use some staff time. There'd be email traffic back and forward with ODOT Rail, maybe some 5 or 6 hours of GIS mapping time would be involved. I'm perhaps $50,000 of engineering work to meet any ODOT requirements just to do a study. So that's a guess, but maybe $50,000 for study work, right? New slide, please. Now, assuming that we worked through those steps and assuming that CDC doesn't come to want to talk to council about this, it might provoke a reaction, then we would then move on and we would enter some sort of dialogue with the railway itself. That's not clear to me right now on how that would go because we've never done this before. So there's some information about the form of the application. The rail division would be taking it. CDC might be unresponsive to us as they have been to us in the past, but maybe not in this case, or they might come here and file an appeal of opposition. New slide, please. Now, assuming that the process did work out and assuming that we want to do this, because I'm not certain, the ODOT rail approval would then scope the cost of removing the rail lines. Well, you might ask me next, what does that cost, Will? So I don't have exact experience in this arena, but from my other experience quoting road repairs, I might guess something like $6,000 per 1,000 square foot for removal. But that, of course, would be combined with a grind and inlay at the same time. So we wouldn't just be removing the lines, we'd be fixing the road at the same time. But it's not our worst street by any means. Grind and inlay would need to follow removal to make a smooth ride, and tough funds and conventional transportation dollars could both be spent on it. New slide, please. So this represents sort of the limit of my thinking at this time. Should we spend some time and money scoping this to get more data, more concrete data? Maybe this is not the time and we should just wait to see what happens with CDC and the mill site first. I know that Mr. Talt put in some fairly well, I would say, good thought out comments to think about. So what does the Honourable Council feel at this time about this discussion item? And I'll leave it at that.
First of all, does anybody have questions for Will? I do have one. Oh, Mike, go ahead.
So who owns that rail line? Is it CDC that owns it, or is it Southern Pacific or something like that?
I'm actually going to defer to Russ because he knows the history of this a bit more than I and how it came into the province of the railway company.
So the right of way is owned by the city of Newberg. However, the rail line itself is owned by Union Pacific Railway, and it was leased to the mill through a third party, which is Portland Western, which is a Genesee and Wyoming rail company. With the demolition of the mill, the lease agreement for the maintenance, and in the lease agreement, the maintenance of the rail, 5 feet either side of the rail, the road, 5 feet either side of the rail, and the center section between the rails was the responsibility of the mill. With the demolition of the mill and the expiration of the company, that lease ceased to exist for the maintenance requirements. Therefore, we are responsible for the maintenance of the road between the rails and outside the rails. Just a little more information on the rails. I don't know if those were here, but the mill did reconstruct that entire rail line from First Street to 9th Street years ago. And anybody knows rails, they extend 4 inches above the ties. The rail is 6 inches, but it extends 4 inches above the ties. The ties and the rail bed section down Blaine Street, they're concrete ties on a compacted rock and concrete base. It's just under the asphalt. So the removal of, and it's a 110-pound rail. For just information, rail is based on weight per foot.
So if we were to do this, why wouldn't we consider going on the other side of 99 up the rest of the way to Blaine Street, all the way up to the main line?
Mostly thinking about council goals, thinking about what streets might be coming up for repair. And I will say, not in 26 or 27. This isn't a targeted street, but just thinking that this is a section we're going to have to get to sooner than later is making me think about this section.
Yes, but north of 99, there's some sections of that really is in rough shape. I don't know, just curious.
One thing I might add for the council's benefit, in talking with Will and in doing some of the research, should we remove the rail through Highway 99, the expense of the removal and complete restoration is determined by ODOT and based on our payment. So we would have to pay for the complete restoration of the highway, removal and restoration of the crossings in the highway.
Are you saying that they would do the work and send us the bill, or are they gonna let us pick the contractor?
They would tell us what we have to do and we could pick the contractor, but they would also tell us that it's fully on our dime.
I thank you for clarifying. When I saw that term in there, that the public entity, I wondered, is that even the city? Thank you. You told us that it was us. I thought that Jim Talt's comments mirrored my opinion on this very, very well. I wish that CDC would communicate and tell us whether or not they have any interest in it. Jim said in his letter, and I wasn't aware of this, that they are advertising that it has a rail spur. So that may be the answer to that question. I'm okay with spending $5,000 to get started on this process, because I fully believe that at some point they're going to sell that mill property and they're not going to have any more use for a rail spur. It's not, in my opinion, likely, possible, but not likely, that somebody that's going to want a rail spur is going to buy. So I don't have a problem with myself spending the $5,000 to get started on this. However, I would like to, as Jim said in his letter, not proceed too far until we know for sure what's gonna happen to that. And I certainly would not be in favor of fixing any of the crossings over the east to west portion of that, which would be what College Street and River Street, until we know for sure what's gonna happen. So that's my opinion.
So spend a little, but don't go into it too much.
That's what I agree with the mayor. I agree with a lot of what Jim said as well. I think it's smart to always scope out projects so that we're ready, but I think not spending too much is important, and also not working on that road and then a year later tearing out the rail, so.
You mentioned River, does this impact the River Street construction that we're doing on River Road? Sorry.
Derek's probably better one to answer this, but I think that we were planning to stop before we get to that crossing, to the northern section. And by the way, that's the reason that Jim Talt is interested as well, because he's on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the neuro. So I thought that was a very good opinion. Are you, is that enough for you, or you want to hear from anybody else?
I don't know. I mean, how soon are we gonna be needing to do the repairs? I mean, I'd kind of like to wait, only because it seems like, depending on who goes down to that mill site, if there's some type of a manufacturing, they could easily use that line to get their stuff out, not only truck, but also rail. So I almost would rather save the money and maybe even bank it aside in the transportation fund. So we've got a little bit more money and have it there to help do some repairs. But I'd like to, I mean, it'd be nice if we could get some type of idea. If CDC is advertising that you've got a rail line going in there, I sure wouldn't want to mess something up that they're trying to do. So I don't know. I'd just soon not spend the money if we just don't have to. I'd rather set it aside.
Well, I mean, that's another, I just came here with an open hand. I don't have a set opinion about this. So, I mean, I can say for certain, this isn't on the grind and inlay list until at least 2027.
Right.
There are higher priority streets, and that's before we run the numbers on the new LiDAR data. Who knows what that's going to point to? So waiting is a perfectly good option too.
I totally understand what Councilor McBride is saying. I think that as long as we have the reassurance that it's not on the list until at least 2027, probably 2028, that gives time for, potential developments of that. And then if they don't want the rail and then we are on the hook for it, we've done the work and scoped it out and that we can be ready to run, where if not, we're going to be pushed back another year and that street will get delayed for repair. And I feel like we have a moment to be prepared for when that mill is ready to go, because the reality is this is, a decade of waiting, and I don't want it to be on us that we didn't do the legwork to know what options we at least have.
So if I'm understanding, Mike, are you okay with him doing the preliminary work, spending up to $5,000 approximately to scope it out and then
I'm
wait?
okay with that. I
Yeah.
don't want to spend
All right.
I don't want to
we're-
spend the 50,000 or
Yeah,
anything.
agreed.
5,000.
I think we're all in agreement.
Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Will. So with that, we have a new record. At 7:07 tonight, this meeting's adjourned.